Hey everybody, this is Nightwatch N8, your host of the Nightwatch Podcast. It's a beautiful day, beautiful sunny day in the Rocky Mountains. I'm going old school today. I'm carrying a handheld DSLR. This time it's not a Canon, it's a Sony. And yes, I got a chance to upgrade. And I think I've carried around that Canon M50 for, well, pretty much 6 years now. The entire length of my YouTube channel. And I've carried that thing to end the COVID chaos rallies and through forest fires, evacuations, and in the pouring rain during floods we had up here in the mountains. And I've set it up in my studio in the Nightwatch Mobile for the official Nightwatch podcasts. It's been a good camera, but I thought it's definitely time to upgrade. So this is a full 4K Sony that specializes in video production, basically. It is a beautiful full-frame Sony video camera slash, DSLR camera. And this thing can do like slow motion, 60 frames per second. This thing's it's a beauty. I can't wait to get this thing out there and use it. I might do some, from the road, on the road adventures again, like remember the old Independence Pass series that I did, and take it out to some historical locations and try to, learn a little bit about our human existence, right? So anyway, if you're asking why does such a poor peasant like myself have the money to afford such a extravagance after 6 years of, I guess, vlogging and podcasting, it's actually kind of a turn of fortune in my favor, I guess, with this accident that I had recently. A big truck ran into the front end of our car. Stuck on the switchbacks up here during a very, very, very slick, wet snow that we had, and the insurance actually paid out $2,600. And I was like, you know what? I could just buy the bumper myself. I have a shop professionally paint it, disassemble everything myself, stick some new headlights on while I'm at it because these are all fogged up, and I could still be pocketing, about $2,000. So. That's what I ended up doing, and actually, 1,000, I don't know, 1,800 is probably what I'll come out after I pay the shop and everything. I think it's like $600 to paint a bumper. So yeah, things aren't cheap anymore. But if I would have taken it to a shop to do it, to do everything for me, then they would have easily charged me the full $2,600. Plus, maybe even, especially if I wanted to put in some headlights. So that's that. Anyway, for today's news, folks, tomorrow's news today, right? Alex Jones and InfoWars claims fake news. Alex, the mainstream alternative media, I swear, fit that criteria of taking over the mantle of the throne of the fake news media more than I think the legacy news ever qualified for that description lately. But kind of on par, kind of on the same line of thinking, I guess. Since I mentioned the Mams, David Icke, the infamous, the man, the myth, the icon, David Icke, was interviewed today in a live stream. I think it ran on for at least a good 3 hours from my buddy Matt Baker from the infamous clip of Matt Baker. I swear I kind of I do enjoy his rage. It's kind of therapeutic sometimes when somebody is just so true to their emotion that they just let it out, right? He's not one of these that are just gonna like snivelingly, take the abuse. Put your head down, fall in line, keep quiet, right? That's not Matt Baker, not the Matt Baker that I know anyway. And so, yeah, what made him famous was when he was at one of these town hall meetings and he was bitching out the local officials over there in California, and he did the famous Hail Fauci speech. Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci! And of course it was put to music. Some pretty talented electric guitarist, put some metal music behind it. And the rest was history. He was on Alex Jones, of all people. He says he's still afraid of Alex Jones, but I don't know. Nobody can word it like Matt Baker words it. If only Alex would just stop, spread it out a little bit, make it not so obvious how much he kisses Elon's ass every day. And of course today, so Matt Baker has this live stream. I do the intro for him, which was kind of fun. He's given me plenty of shout outs in the past. I mean, this is a guy with like 170,000 followers on X, and I'm still struggling with just under 5,000. And on average, I'm giving like 100 views on my tweets. So for whatever reason, the man, right, doesn't like your boy Nightwatch. But thankfully, praise God, and he's not your typical angel, but he's kind of a gift from God, this Matt Baker guy, because he's been giving me shout outs. Told me at one point he's going to do it every week now, so that's awesome, because it's really hard to break through when you're so heavily shadow banned and the algorithms are all stacked up against you to the point where you just can't get any unique views. I can produce the best content on the earth. Not that I'm saying I do, but I could. And if they don't give me the amount of views, if they don't give me any unique views, aside from a little handful on average, I don't know if you noticed, but the last couple videos I put on YouTube have like 60 views. After 6 years and about 650 videos later. Sorry for my truck's a little loud because it's got that problem shifting between first and second still. Don't have money to fix the transmission. But so this Matt Baker guy, he's awesome. He's been giving me shout outs. And it was my pleasure to do this little intro for his interview with, once again, the iconic David Icke. And it was, by the way, a really good, probably the most in-depth interview that I've heard yet. And I sat through every minute of that good 3.5 hours. The beginning started out with a little hiccup. And I don't know if it was related to this recent... supposedly there was a cyber attack against X today, if you haven't heard yet. And so Musk, of course, instantly starts doing interviews with the legacy fake news about how, according to their sources, the source originated in Ukraine, right? After this bickering back and forth between Trump and Zelensky and all this manufactured drama between these two TV celebrities. One is a reality TV show host, and the other is a comedian, TV comedian over there in Ukraine. And in typical WWF SmackDown fashion, Trump and Zelensky got into it, and ever since then, I guess Trump has pulled aid from Ukraine, not from Israel, of course, right? You can never defund Israel. But everybody else, they're not going to get our taxpayer dollars no more. And so that was going on just hours prior to this, early in the wee morning hours prior to this live stream with Matt Baker and David Icke. So I don't know if that related, but at the very beginning of the show, predictably, right, like all things go wrong when they can, Matt Baker tried to play my epic intro that I spent so much time on, and it was just freezing up, one frame per every 30 seconds or something like that. And eventually he got it to play again, and it was fairly smooth, but he only ended up using, I think, like the first 3 minutes of it. So eventually I might compile like a shortened version, obviously, from that 3-hour long interview with David Icke. I'll take out the highlights that I think are worthy of listening to, let's say. And I will include my full, if Matt Baker agrees with this idea, that is, if I get his permission, which I'm sure he will, I'll include my full intro to his podcast. And that should be fun. In the next few days, I'll try to get that one up. Otherwise, yeah, that was pretty cool. David Icke, he's one of these guys, and of course I hold my tongue, right? As I would with anybody as huge as David Icke. I think he's got about 900 some followers now, 900,000 some followers, and I'm one of the, I think it's about 270 that David Icke follows. So, no, I've actually, I'll openly admit I do not agree with everything David Icke believes. I don't think he'd get offended at that. David Icke he's a pretty thick-skinned reptilian, if you know what I mean. He's put up with a lot of criticism, a lot of public humiliations over the years, and he doesn't really, I sincerely believe he doesn't care what a little guy like me thinks of his beliefs. He's pretty solid. He's got his books, years upon years of research. I think he said in the interview today he's 73 years old, that guy. And he's one of these OGs of the conspiracy world. I've continually kind of gone back to just kind of check on Icke now and then, see what he's up to, see what kind of content he's putting out over the years for the last, 3 decades now. And, but yeah, I mean, he's a Gnostic from the sounds of it. He made a comment that the God of the Old Testament is basically the bad guy, which is basically Gnosticism 101. If you believe in a matrix, so I was commenting in the chat up until about halfway through the interview when the chat just failed and I couldn't see anything from the chat, nor could I comment anymore. And awesomely enough, I think Matt put a couple of my comments up there on the bottom of the live stream that sat up there for quite a while, actually. And, I had to put in my 2 cents to whoever was listening. But, yeah, I mean, so if David believes in a simulation, my first question is, well, how do you know, whose interpretation of the simulation is the correct one, right? If everything's a simulation, if everything's an illusion, and Matt kept trying to push him. It's kind of funny, we talked over the phone, actually, the night before this interview. For the first time, that was kind of cool, talking to Matt Baker. I think I can talk, I'll tell you that much. He, like David Icke, has the gift for gab. I guess I do sometimes too. Not always. I try to be a good listener. When somebody else has something to say, that is. When you're not a captive audience, like my audience usually is on this podcast, on this vlog. So David Icke, he has a lot against the Christian religion, let's just say. That's how it comes across for me. And I agree with a lot of the same criticisms of the harlot church. Even God in the book of Revelation hates the whore of Babylon because she makes a horrible example of all things relating to God, right? She twists and perverts the truth. She makes it a cage of every unclean bird, right? That's a perfect description of false religion. And that's how Mystery Babylon, mother of harlots, the Vatican, who sits on 7 hills in Rome, classically, historically known. That's a perfect description of her, according to God, in God's Word in the book of Revelation. So I know I'm a bit of a Bible thumper, according to probably a lot of people that listen to David Icke. But, on the same token, it's like, well, okay, choose your own religion. which faith system has demonstrated itself, has more credibility over the history of mankind. You know, another thing I put on the chat was like, you know, it's big of us to sit there and mock and ridicule the Christian faith, the faith of the Bible, when you know, it's pretty much the blood of the martyrs that paid for all those freedoms that you enjoy today, right? That you so flippantly disregard that amazing gift that we've all been given, to be able to just speak our mind on the internet openly, right? Prior to Christianity, prior to the Protestant Reformation in particular, the Protestant sola scriptura, Bible-based version of Christianity, prior to all that, that was what the Catholic Church would consider an anathema, to think for yourself, to be to exercise your liberty of conscience, right? To, as Martin Luther said, as he stood before the tribunal with his life on the line, when he was asked to recant of all his heretical works, his heretical literature, his books openly criticizing Babylon, which he came out of, you know, as a philosopher, a theologian. Martin Luther was part of the Catholic Church until he started reading the Word of God. And the truth is likened to a double-edged sword. And I would argue, as a Christian, Bible-based Christian, Protestant Christian, that the Bible has done more to free mankind than any other source on the planet, right? And so I might butt heads a little bit with David Icke on that point. Maybe someday we'll have a conversation, right? Maybe I'll be big enough if you guys continue to share my videos and like my videos, support the channel. Who knows? Maybe I'll get David Icke on. He's an old guy, but I've seen channels get bigger, hundreds of thousands of subscribers within a year or two. You know, whereas, you know, it takes me a good 6 years to get a couple thousand. But I was kind of a naughty boy during the COVID years, right there along with David Icke. I wasn't getting banned by countries in Europe. Man, some of the stories that he has in that interview of just how tyrannical some of these countries in the EU actually are. Again, they have no concept of, you know, in this once Protestant country with our constitutional Republican form of government, they have absolutely no context. They have nothing to fall back on, you know, in the face of rising tyranny. At least, you know, Republicans and conservatives, in name only, you know, have our historical record as a nation, right? Freedom, liberty, right? The beacon of liberty for the world. And I would argue once again, that's only because Protestant Christians, as a majority, formed this nation, right? There might have been some Satanists and deists or whatever else that, you know, were the early presidents, but they had to, on some real level, cater to the Protestant Christian majority. So anyway, what else did I comment on? Yeah, and the other argument was that I posted in the comment section, just to recap, you know, all this outrage of the tyrannical God of the Old Testament, you know, the same God that says he takes no pleasure in the death, in the destruction of the wicked. You know, you got to read things in context. There are some things in the Old Testament that don't seem to make sense, right? But we're also not God, and we can't see the beginning from the end, right? Some of these people that were destroyed, you know, maybe they were really, really, really sick, twisted, warped people that would never turn back to God, God seeing the end from the beginning, right? The beginning from the end. You know, maybe some of these Canaanites and different tribes were so inherently evil that nothing ever good would ever come out of them, no matter how many generations passed. And by the way, those young kids that were killed in the process are not judged according to what they don't know, right? So if you believe in the afterlife, the resurrection, a lot of those kids that were killed earlier than the age of accountability, when they knew to do right but did wrong, a lot of those kids will probably be there resurrected, to live on for eternity, according to how I understand the Bible. But there is a lot of questions, no doubt. The Bible is not a perfect document, and that's another thing that gives it credibility, is that it's not this highly edited, right? Like King David, right? You'd think King David would rewrite history to make him look like a little, choir boy, right? A saint. But he wasn't, right? He killed his best friend and slept with his wife, basically. I mean, like, you can imagine the worst TV afternoon Days of Our Lives type of drama show, sitcom, and that's what some of these figures in the Bible's lives were like, right? But there's a lot to learn from these people. And but yeah, my main argument with anybody that argues that the God of the Old Testament is a tyrant, why would anybody worship him? Again, you have to, if God is love, you have to believe in a God that is also just. And he's got to have rules. And otherwise, what do you base your morality on, right? If it's just Darwinism, might means right, survival of the fittest, then you can't be too angered with, let's say, the nation of Israel cleansing the Gaza Strip, right? Ethnic cleansing, because that would just be survival of the fittest, right? Israel is the stronger nation. The Gazans are a sub-race. You might as well exterminate them all. That's where all this eugenics came from, right? That's what inspired a lot of these, and continues to inspire a lot of these global elite that want population control, because they seriously see themselves as like an evolved, higher, separate race from the rest of us orcs, these dumbed down masses, these useless feeders that are just there to eat, consume, and die, and be fed lots of big pharma drugs and line their pockets, sick and dying. They literally see the bulk of humanity as some kind of a sub-race because they're a bunch of Nazi eugenicists who believe in might means right, Darwinism, and survival of the fittest, basically. And so that's the line of thinking you're led down. If you walk away from God. Another one of my comments during this live stream today was, walk away from God and just wait and see what kind of horrific atrocities mankind will commit when mankind no longer has any concept of a lawgiver, right? Think about it. What do you base your morality on, if not for the God of the Old Testament? You just make it up as you go? Do you just trust your heart to make sense of the world? Do you think that you yourself are really capable of knowing all things? And are you capable of fully, in all situations, knowing right from wrong, just within your own capacity? Or do you have to look to a higher standard, like Jesus Christ, the highest standard that mankind has ever known throughout the ages, right? The most influential figure ever known to mankind. Still to this day, the Bible, outselling every other book, right? Best-selling book every year and for all human history. And just to try to wave that off as just some kind of a program or a script that's invented to deceive and keep us controlled. I think that's not doing your due diligence, as I see it, because if you just read the Bible, it has account after account of the prophets of God standing up against the powers of the day, the kings, the rulers, and in the book of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, King Nebuchadnezzar erected that golden statue that we saw just recently in that Gaza Trump video, right? He erected that statue that just happened to measure 6 cubits wide by 6 cubits wide by 60 cubits tall. 666, by the way. And Trump, by the way, representing the lamb-like beast in the book of Revelation that'll breathe life back into the first beast of Rome. You have Donald Trump picturing himself as some kind of a Nebuchadnezzar figure, erecting a golden idol, a golden image, because the lamb-like beast will force all the world to worship the image to the first beast. Anyway, don't let me get on a tangent on that whole thing. That was something I haven't covered yet, but I hope to soon. It was pretty revealing, some of the symbolism in that little AI video that came out. But yeah, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're ordered, instructed upon a death penalty. If they didn't, they'd be tossed into the fiery furnace if they didn't bow down and worship the image of Nebuchadnezzar, which was meant to symbolize that the Babylonian Empire would last forever, because he was the head of gold in the image that he saw in his dream that was interpolated with God's prophet Daniel. And so he kind of stuck his fist in the air, thumbed his nose at God, and said, you know what? My kingdom's going to last forever. Even if you think that rock that's not formed by any human hand that eventually will destroy all the different consecutive empires, all the lesser metals that came after Babylon, right? The Medo-Persians, the Greece, the Roman Empire, and the current kind of mixed soft control empire that we inherited today that came from the 10 kingdoms of Europe, in the 10 toes of that those feet mixed with iron from Rome and miry clay of the people, right? We're all made, like the potter makes the people out of the clay. So that's a symbol of the people. So it's kind of like this democracy, soft power, combined with Rome. Now, who's been talking a lot about Rome lately? Elon Musk, right? We are the new Rome, according to Elon Musk. Well, we're also, apparently, according to this video that Trump put out, we're the new Babylon. And that makes sense prophetically, because once again, the lamb-like beast breathes life into the image to the first beast of Rome, who is the rightful heir, according to their own doctrine, the rightful successor of the Caesars, Pontifex Maximus. Anyway, just to say, in one sentence, kind of lazily, in my opinion, to say that the Bible is just a book to control the masses is, like I said, it's intellectually lazy. If you just simply read some of the accounts in the Bible, it has instance after instance of God's people standing up to the powers that be. The early martyrs, they wouldn't light a little incense to Caesar, and so they faced being torn apart by wild beasts, by lions in the Colosseums, just for the entertainment of the Romans, which was such a powerful display of their faith. They went into these Colosseums so calmly, showing such great faith that they converted an empire, even though it was later co-opted by Constantine and turned into the pagan Roman Empire, which we now have the successor of in the Roman Catholic Church. Anyway, just some things to think about. It's a topic that I am very passionate about, as you can hear. But it was otherwise a good interview. Like I said, I don't agree 100% with David Icke, but I also lately, like I've said, I've agreed with him more than anybody, just because he's not afraid, and Matt made a good point of that at one point in the interview, that he's just not afraid of what people think, and he's not going to carry water for the establishment, and he's not just going to be one of these grifters that jumps onto the current thing in order to make himself filthy rich. Do I agree with all of his Gnosticism? Not necessarily his interpretation. Let's just say that. But like I said, if you guys make me big enough someday, keep sharing my videos, liking my videos, contributing, buying me a coffee, whatever you can do. Maybe someday, I'll be able to interview David Icke myself, and I'll be prepared enough to make a fairly educated arguments for the God of the Bible, because it's, like I said, it's the most influential book in the history of mankind, and it has done more to free mankind from the shackles and oppression of tyrants. Right, I did that recent podcast about how instrumental Protestant Christians were in the liberation of the slaves in this country, right? I got a bunch of elk in front of me, if you're wondering why I was distracted. Yeah, the Civil War we had in this country, Christians making points based upon Scripture were a vital component to freeing slaves and doing rid of slavery throughout the world. As a matter of fact, there is no longer Jew nor Gentile, bond servant or free, slave or free. All are equal. We're all yoked together. We're all part of this body of Christ. As Christ is the head, one high priest, there's only one king, King Jesus. And that's really the more liberating belief system, if you think about it. Because if you go to the other extreme, let's say the Church of Satan extreme, and just do what thou wilt, that will never lead to peace and security and true freedom. That'll always lead to more government, more tyranny. The more lawless a people. And, some of our founding fathers and the second president, John Adams put it, our Constitution was designed for a godly and religious people. Because if you can't, on some level, govern yourself, and like I like to say, be governed by God, you will need an oppressive, iron-fisted government, right? You will need those little bits of iron in those feet of clay. You will need a stronger and stronger central government to keep us all safe from ourselves. And that's the big lie, right? That we need more and more government because we're all so ungovernable. If we were governed by God, we wouldn't have all that much need for government, is all I'm saying. In any case, God bless everybody. I'll show you these elk to end the show with here. I know I've been rambling on already. This camera's worked out pretty good. There's some arguments that this thing overheats, but it hasn't overheated on me yet, and I'm sitting here holding it in the sun, so that's good. God bless. Thanks everybody for the support over the years. Like, share the video. Like I said, if you could afford super thanks on YouTube or buy me a coffee. Anything like that helps. I pour a ton of time into this show, and I just appreciate everybody out there. Yeah, look forward to that shortened version, that collage, that compilation I'll do maybe of this interview with Matt Baker and David Icke, including that full-length intro that the Nightwatch N8 guy worked on all Sunday. Anyway, God bless everybody. Till next time, it's Nightwatch N8 signing out. And here are the elk, just in case you haven't seen an elk before. We see them all the time up here in Estes. But I'll show you. What are you doing, guys?